In this episode,
Testosterone is the #1 hormone to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. So it is important for bone, number one for the heart, #1 to prevent Alzheimer's. Progesterone is the #2 hormone for building bone, protecting the heart, and helping to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. So if you hit menopause and you start to deteriorate, now the doctors will say, well, but you're supposed to die at 78.
The individuals with IUDs, their estrogens continually go out of whack. And now it's PCOS, now it's endometriosis, and severe pain, severe cramping, and it's just this constant agony, month in and month out.
5 years into the study, 2001, they abruptly stopped it because so many women in this group of over 100,000 were developing breast cancer or had already died of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, any of the female cancers, and they had heart disease and strokes. So they stopped the study because they realized there was something dangerous going on.
I've seen women that haven't had their period just work overnight. I've had a girl that couldn't get pregnant work overnight.
Yeah.
Balancing out your progesterones, work overnight.
Wow.
It's amazing.
With the Vitex,
with just a simple Vitex.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I actually call it the feel good supplement.
Hello and welcome to Health in Focus with Jacobus. I am your host, Jacobus Hollowijn. This is a podcast where we talk about health, healing, and healthy lifestyles. We talk about the spirit, the mind, the body, the emotions, or a combination of all four. I enjoy having guests in the studio so that we can bounce off each other and learn more together, and then share that information with all of you. So take notes. Enjoy yourself, enjoy the time that we have over here together, and always reach out to learn more. Talking to a physician, looking on the internet, reading some books. There is a lot of information out about any topic I discuss that cannot always be discussed in the time frame that we have. But hopefully an interview like this tickles your interest to do more research for yourself, especially if you are suffering from symptoms or disorders that we discuss on the program. So, welcome to the program. My guest today is Mitzi Kruslin, and she is a health expert in her own right. She has been in the dietary supplement industry for more than 20 years. She even managed the vitamin shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And she is also a certified nutrition counselor. And so it is good to have you back on the show. Last time we discussed cholesterol. Super interesting.
It was.
This time we thought, let's talk about hormones. Another topic, super confusing. Super confusing. It blows my mind how many people I've talked to over the decades who don't understand where hormones come from, what kind of hormones we make, how it can affect the emotions, the physical body, PMS, low libido, weight gain, erectile dysfunctions. And this is a topic that needs to be discussed probably more than once because there is so much to learn and so much to say about it. We have a few books over here that I know both of you and I, have been inspired by because reading it taught us more about what we need to know.
Absolutely.
So, what are some of the questions that you get from your clients when you talk to them?
To me, it depends on age. Where are they at with their, I call it life cycle, basically. Is it a mother bringing in their daughter? Okay. Is it the mother herself of her time of life? Or is it a woman in her menopause? So it's
or post.
Or post, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it varies day to day, and I get questions upon questions, no matter what age now, and it's starting to become younger. And the greatest part is now they're wanting to learn what's going on with their bodies. That's what I like. They're wanting to learn. Because when they go to their doctor, it's really cut and dry. When they go see their gynecologist, they're basically just prodding them and not really answering any questions.
Yeah.
So that's it's just not informative.
Yeah. The first time I was really learning about it started with the book from Dr. John Lee, What Your Doctor May Not Tell You About Menopause. And this came out in 1996. Wow. He came out with a book, What Your Doctor May Not Tell You About Perimenopause or Premenopause. And that came out in 1999, was also Dr. John Lee. And it taught me indeed about this hormone called progesterone. And I had never heard of it, but then you start reading about it and you are picking up on more and more research from so many physicians these days. But when it comes to, let's call it mainstream physicians, hospitals, there is this protocol that doctors follow that I feel over time we have learned. If this was 1995, 1996, that was when he published the book, which means he had already done the research on it for a long time. And doctors are still not looking at these books and say, how can I educate myself? Then Dr. John Gray came out with the book, Men Are for Mars, Women Are for Venus. That gives you the idea that men make testosterone and women make estrogens. And that's why there are issues, right? Only to find out that we actually all make the exact same number of hormones, except the ratios are different. We men make more testosterone than women. We also make more DHEA, which is the youth hormone, than women. But women make more estrogens and more progesterone. But otherwise, the women make testosterone, we make estrogens and progesterone. Women make DHEA, but not as much as men. So we have the same hormones, but what sets us apart is let's call it the milligrams.
Oh, there you go.
The nanograms per deciliter, or whatever you want to call it on a blood test. And then you start looking at what are some of the issues that come up. And the more you learn about that, you understand the problem that people have, because not everybody can maintain that much information. It's not always top of mind awareness, even though it happens every month, and for some people every day.
Absolutely.
After pregnancy, postpartum depression, menopause, the loss of other hormones, it's a very interesting topic. I love talking about the topic.
Absolutely, right. But also, it's how it's interconnected. They call it the endocrine system.
Correct.
But what else is included in the endocrine system?
Adrenals
And your
thyroid.
thyroid.
And your pituitary.
And they're all connected.
Yeah.
They all have to play a role. A lot of individuals don't realize that.
Yeah.
They think, oh, my thyroid's off. Well, what's your hormones like?
Yeah.
Could that play a role?
Correct.
I'm seeing more and more, because we are living in such a stressful society, everyone's adrenals are shot. And they don't realize that plays a role with how the body makes progesterone. And of course estrogens. That plays a huge role, and that's what I'm really trying to teach individuals, the adrenals as well.
Go ahead and explain it.
The adrenal, well, as much of the reading as I have done.
Where are they located?
The adrenals are little glands that sit on top of your kidneys.
Top of the kidneys. A lot of people do not know that.
No, they don't even know what they are.
Over here, or
I don't know where.
Point at different spots.
They don't even know.
Yeah, they're little pyramids on top of the kidneys.
Right. And they get affected. They can get affected daily. They do have their process, right? They do naturally make cortisol, but the cortisols have to rise and lower at certain parts of the day, and it's normal. So I do believe that when you your body actually makes more cortisol, hopefully in the morning, because that's how you wake up.
Wake up.
The downside to that is the cortisol will stay up all through the day, and it will never start to plummet at evening. So that's why people have difficulties falling asleep sometimes.
Right.
It's always elevated, always elevated.
But why?
Well,
Today, we're overstimulated.
to me, I've always talked about two stimulations that we do to ourselves on a daily basis, and I believe that it's caffeine and stress. Caffeine, it could be touch and go, but definitely stress. So if you're already having a stressful situation and it's reoccurring on a daily basis, I believe it'll keep your cortisol high. And it'll keep it high throughout the day. So then you always start hearing the symptoms. I can't sleep. I'm too wired. Then I'm starting to get more tired because I can't sleep and I'm too wired. So you're hearing the same stories, and then all of a sudden they're having an issue with their hormones. They're having an issue with their monthly cycle. And it's just one thing after another. And it seems to get worse and worse and worse. The funny part is when they go to their doctor, the doctors don't even touch adrenals. They don't even talk about it.
I see.
They don't talk. Let's concentrate on your hormones. What can we do about that? Well, they're not going to fix it for you, are they? Well, the way they fix it is by just downplaying everything. Let's put you on a birth control. Because now that's going to help hopefully regulate your periods, but then that's going to actually stop your periods. And now that could in turn cause your estrogens to either just rise and to abnormal amounts, where then other issues was caused from that. And everybody knows I've been hearing a lot more of PCOS, endometriosis, cysts. There's no ovulation going on, and it's just you're hearing constant.
So you cannot get pregnant.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just spiral that's just spinning out of control, I think. Just spinning out of control. And the faster we go, it's getting more out of control. And there has to be a turning point or a stopping point.
It is a little confusing to me at times when I hear there is no ovulation going on.
Yes.
Does that mean that the ovary fires, I think, every other month? So left on one side is maybe January, March, May, July, September, November. And the other one on the right side will be February, April, June, August, October, December. So every other month. But then the follicle is stimulated in the ovary. The egg is developed. The follicle opens up. Middle of the month, middle of the cycle. The egg jumps into the fallopian tube, but carries with it 4 major hormones. 2 forms of estrogen, testosterone, and DHEA. And then as the follicle bursts, out of the wall of the follicle comes progesterone that follows it. And so you make 5 hormones. So are you saying that when women go on the pill or an IUD, that this whole thing doesn't happen? Because I thought it was more that it is an estrogen disruptor, that it messes with the estrogen to reduce the symptoms. But on the other hand, by not having enough estrogen, I think it is hard to get pregnant, and that's why birth control pills work.
Well, isn't it that when your estrogen gets disrupted,
Yeah.
there's something foreign in the body?
Absolutely.
So now with the IUD or birth control, that's a foreign synthetic product in the body. And it's either going to be more progesterone or more estrogen that they're going to give you.
Usually it is a synthetic form of
progesterone.
progesterone, which is called
Absolutely.
progestin.
Yes.
TIN at the end. And that is a disruptor. And sometimes they throw in some estrogens as well. But in the pharmaceutical world, they cannot extract anything from Mother Nature and patent it as is. They need to make it a synthetic form that will hopefully do what they want it to do, but it can be multiplied now into the millions.
Right.
And so they can patent that. And so they're using Mother Nature as a source, but the end product is some kind of a form of a synthetic
Right.
hormone, synthetic substance.
Which in turn then causes the bleeding to stop when you
Correct.
have this. So how is that a balanced body?
Yeah.
It's not a balanced body at all. And my curiosity then goes into what happens to your own progesterone. Does it
Correct.
really just falter? Does it stay stagnant? Because then what I've been hearing is the individuals with IUDs, their estrogens continually go out of whack. And now it's PCOS, now it's endometriosis, and severe pain, severe cramping, and it's just this constant agony month in and month out.
Yeah. What I notice is that with the symptoms that women experience, and let me just mention the ones that I usually share with people. So between ovulation and menstruation, these are the symptoms that I usually say women may experience between ovulation and menstruation. Heightened anxiety, depression, mood swings, foggy thinking, poor memory, headaches, migraines, breast tenderness, bloating, cramping, weight gain, endometriosis, ovarian cyst or PCOS, uterine fibroids, long periods, heavy periods, irregular periods, acne, hives, allergies, infertility, including miscarriages, low libido, cancer of any of the female organs, fatigue, insomnia, hair loss, dry eyes. And women look at me and said, I got all of those. Or they say, I have about 30%. What that means is that it is not a disease. And what I notice when women go to a physician, or even an OBGYN, they simply say, you have something that is called estrogen dominance. And that is actually a term that Dr. Lee promoted. He called it estrogen dominance. The problem with estrogen dominance is that, maybe it's a guy thing, I don't know, but it makes it sound that you make too much estrogen. Estrogen is dominating within that group of hormones. But what it really is that estrogen is simply higher than progesterone production.
Right.
So you can have high estrogen with normal progesterone, and you have the symptoms I just mentioned. You can have normal estrogen production with low progesterone, same symptoms. So you don't know, was it high, was it the same symptoms? You can also have low estrogen with almost no progesterone, and you can have the same symptoms. Now, if the gap is a little bit higher, then you have a definite estrogen dominance, and therefore your symptoms could be more or more intense.
Absolutely.
That has to do with the distance. And so I came up with an analogy. I say, when these hormones jump in the fallopian tube, estrogen is so excited, it starts to act a little bit like a tomboy.
Okay.
It just wants to cause ruckus. Kick people in the ass, poke tires, throw rock through windows, just have a blast. And the other hormones say, come on, we got to go to the uterus. We got to go. Let's go. And the estrogen wants to hang out and just have fun. Those are the symptoms it creates by not having enough chaperones.
There you go.
So I look at progesterone as a chaperone of estrogen. So if estrogen is over here and progesterone is here, the chaperone is only watching all these estrogens, but nobody watches these estrogens.
There you go.
And so you pretty much, if you have a big gap, it's like taking a bunch of tomboys and two buses on a field trip and put all the chaperones in a Volkswagen. There's just not enough chaperones. And so there is a bunch of ruckus and a lot of problems. They're having a good time.
Right.
But they cause symptoms. So we just need to bring a busload of chaperones bring the progesterone up to a level where the estrogens cannot dominate. And that to me is a simple explanation what we need to do. So where the terminology was estrogen dominance, I think we should have called it progesterone deficiency.
Oh, there you go.
And so progesterone deficiency, therefore, may also create breast cancer, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, all the uterine cancer, different cancers. And there will be people who say, well, but that's not the only cause of cancer. I get it.
Yeah.
But you already are behind the 8 ball when your hormones are out of balance, when you are in your birthing years. In menopause, a whole other thing happens,
Right.
but we can talk about that. But to me, when I recommend people to look into, first of all, I recommend people do a blood test. But you don't do a blood test when you just menstruate because all the hormones come out. I also recommend don't do a blood test in the second week of your 4-week cycle because the second week, the ovary is getting ready with the follicle.
Right.
So you see a slight incline in hormones, but not as much as what you see in week 3, which is ovulation. So we call that the mid-cycle. Mid-cycle will be a great time to test your hormones and to find out, is the ratio okay? And then the last week is the luteal phase. It's pretty much if there was fertilization taking place in that time, the luteum is developing. And so there still could be quite a bit of hormones, but not as much as in the mid-cycle. So people women do a blood test. I would say if you can, if you are able to know when your cycle roughly happens and you roughly can tell
Yes.
when your ovulation is, then wait till right after that in that 3rd week to do the hormones. And then let's see, is estrogen on the high side of normal?
Right.
And is progesterone maybe on the low side of normal? Then we already have an explanation what we need to do. But too many times, Mitzi, I see that doctors say we need to punish the estrogen.
Right.
And women need estrogen.
Yes.
Men need testosterone, women need estrogen. So you don't mess with the estrogen. You don't bring it down. It really messes people up. You just have to reclaim the balance between the estrogen progesterone. The testosterone and DHEA, they do their thing.
They
There
do.
is optimal levels. We can talk about that. But the big thing with hormone imbalance every month, in my opinion, is the estrogen progesterone imbalance.
We do have other attackers too. So the attackers are, what do they call it? Xenoestrogens?
Xenoestrogens?
Xenoestrogens.
Absolutely.
They're attackers. So that could cause another disruption. That's our environment.
Yep.
But then it's also the synthetics. You know, they're, again, another disruptor.
Yes.
How do you take a synthetic progesterone from an IUD and have that as a good chaperone?
Yeah, exactly.
How can it be a good chaperone?
No, cannot.
It cannot.
No.
You know, and maybe it can help. A lot of women saying, "Oh, I do feel so much better." I'm like, "But you're not bleeding. You're not menstruating anymore."
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. You know, to me, that's not a good thing. You
No.
know, we are meant to do this every single month for a purpose, for a
Yeah,
reason.
that's right.
So
It's a very complicated issue in a
it
way,
is.
or maybe it's made more complicated
It's made more complicated now.
than it is.
It is,
Than
yes,
than
absolutely.
it is. Yeah, and I feel that so many women. There was a lady I talked once to. She came in with a gentleman who was her neighbor, and she just drove him out here we couldn't drive. And we're sitting at the table, and I talked to him about the different hormones. And I said, men do not know that they make estrogens, specifically estradiol from the hormone testosterone. Testosterone converts into estradiol. I said, 99% of men have never heard of the word estradiol. She said, I've never heard of estradiol. She has 9 children.
Amazing.
So it is not being taught.
Right. Zero.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a stickler about it, but sometimes I go, if we could just start at a young age explaining simple things about the body. This is an arm, this is a torso, this is the heart, this is the liver, to children. And as they grow older, we incorporate a few new terminologies, new things that they never thought about. We get to the hormones, we start explaining it. It could be part of whatever class, I don't know, whatever topic they would give that. But in my opinion, you can say, well, the parents need to educate, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But to have it part of education, doesn't have to be in school, but it should be taught to children that they have a better understanding.
Absolutely, right.
You know, why can you not say a penis and a vagina? Why do you have to say, well, it's the wee-wee, you know, and little Johnny, you know? And it's like, what does that help a child with?
doesn't.
Because how are you going to change the name when they're 10 or 12? Say, well, you know, your little wee-wee, well, there's an issue. Well, okay, well, wee-wee, you know. Just use the name. You take away all the frivolous
Right.
thoughts about it. It's just a word.
Right. But the funny part is, I remember when I was a little girl, and I was just told, you're going to bleed. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
But nobody tells you why.
Yeah.
I never heard why from anybody. My mom, the doctors, nobody. They just, you're going to bleed.
Yeah.
Just don't get pregnant. I'm like, well, what does that mean? I was very confused. I was very, very confused. So I can only imagine now, you know, and it's just not talked about.
No.
And it should be. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and once I start talking about to the young ladies or women, or I don't care what age, they get comfortable with it. And then I see their light bulb come on, and they're like, well, that's why this is happening.
Yeah.
And then, but we all have our own intuition, so we are able to heal ourselves from that part. Like, oh, well, if this is what's happening, I know I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So it's a whole new ballgame when you finally are understanding, getting the knowledge of what's actually happening in the body. And believe me, it's going to happen to every single woman.
It does.
Yes, it happens to every
It
single
does.
woman. I don't care who you are. But it should. It's just having some knowledge on it.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome.
And noticing and explaining and understanding that we're talking about an imbalance. That's all
That's
it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need hormones.
Right.
So hormones give us life. Hormones give us energy. They give us all the qualities that we experience. In your case as a female, my case as a male. We need to have optimal, if you can, you want to have optimal hormones till the day you die.
Right.
And that to me is very important. There is a study that was done between 2006 and 2011 on 2,400 men between the ages of 69 and 81 years old. So 2,400 men, 5 years, ages 69 to 81. Simply trying to understand, why is it that as men get older, they start having heart disease, heart attacks, strokes, prostate cancer, Alzheimer's, obesity, diabetes. All disorders that are part of getting older, right? And what they did in that study, they noticed that the men who naturally still had pretty high testosterone and that enzyme aromatase that pulls from the testosterone converts it into estradiol, the estradiol was still relatively low. So high testosterone, lower estradiol. Those men were very healthy, lean, lived a long life.
And I think that's the way it's supposed to be.
That's when we're younger.
Yeah, right.
That's the way it is.
And it could continue.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you don't have it naturally, there are things you can do actually also naturally to make sure that you keep the testosterone high in men and that you bring the estradiol down. And so they were studying the men who had lower testosterone as they were getting older, but as you mentioned, the combination of xenoestrogens or environmental estrogens had disrupted these men's estradiol.
Oh, I bet.
It gotten bigger than it was supposed to be, and these men were at a high risk of heart attacks, cardiovascular disease in general, strokes, prostate cancer, and that was what happened to them. So when you look at women, when women go in menopause, they lose their estrogens, estrone, estradiol. They lose their progesterone, they lose their DHEA, and they lose their testosterone. All the hormones are gone. And what they have discovered is that testosterone, especially in women, because you make less than I do, testosterone is the number one hormone for building bone. And so if you don't make testosterone anymore in menopause, guess what? Women are at a higher risk of osteopenia and osteoporosis. Testosterone is the number one hormone for the heart. Why? Because every muscle in your body needs testosterone to function. And the heart is the hardest working muscle. You don't want it to relax too much, right?
Absolutely.
And testosterone is the number one hormone to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. So it is important for bone, number one for the heart, number one to prevent Alzheimer's. Progesterone is the number two hormone for building bone, protecting the heart, and helping to prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. So if you hit menopause and you start to deteriorate, now the doctors will say, well, but you're supposed to die at 78. Come on, the average person dies at 78. And you're 72. What are you complaining about? You got 6 more years to go. Come on, hang in there. But you cannot tell that to people and say, well, why don't you just get ready to die?
Right.
People have a desire to live. But if the hormones are out of balance, and number one, we don't understand the hormones, and number two, we're not getting the support from the practicing physician, then we think we're just doomed. This is it. And there is so much information out now that teaches you how to increase hormone production and to find a balance. It's all about balance.
Absolutely.
To live a long and healthy and strong life and enjoy as long as you can.
Right. But I like to emphasize that natural part. There are so many ways you can do it naturally.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, once again, with the food productions and so forth, when did they start putting the hormones in the foods to make them grow?
About 50 years ago.
So that's been going on around for a while now.
Yeah.
And now we've been noticing how, because of that, it's actually disrupting our hormones. For men, women, children, it doesn't make a difference. There's always some disruption, again, with that part.
Yeah. So you put it in the food, especially in the meat products. And so now you eat the meat that has been affected by hormones in order to yield production and output. I heard once that a very famous chicken farm grows a chicken from an egg, popping out of the egg till they're nice and plump to chop the head off in 28 days.
Oh my gosh.
28 days. Now, I saw something else looking on the internet, and it didn't show 28 days, but it said 46 days. But even if it is 46 days that you grow, what is 40? That's a month and a half.
Yes.
What is a month and a half?
Yeah.
So, and then these are usually not chickens that are free range running around freely. They're in these feedlots, chicken coops, whatever they are. And they don't turn the lights off. They leave the light on for them, and then they feed them all day. So a chicken gets up when the sun comes up and goes to bed when the sun goes down. They don't have that chance. They're sitting there and they're just eating food.
Consistently. Okay.
Yeah. So now it goes in the food. Now we eat it. And we're talking about cows, chickens, and pigs that we have, in my opinion, have nourished with certain hormones to increase yield. You add that up over 50 years. You look where that's all been done. It's done in Europe, it's done in Asia, Brazil, Argentina, parts of Africa, the United States, Canada. You add it up over 50 years, we're talking about trillions of animals. Trillions of animals.
Of course.
Every animal, till the day they die, they poop and they pee where they're standing. So part of the hormone residue will come out to the feces and the urine. Where does that go? in the groundwater. So
there you
now
go.
you add that up over 50 years. Now we're talking about high estrogenic compounds going in the groundwater. So when you swim in a lake, in a river, you look at the fishes already in the river, even where we live, we should be very clean water, but they are seeing estrogens in the trout in this area. You look at when we take a shower, wash our hands, it is very difficult to eliminate the hormones in us. So it comes back to us by showering, washing hands, eating the meat, etc., etc.
Okay.
So now we recycle it in our body,
Yep.
and we use the bathroom. So that is an issue.
It is an issue.
And that is one way to look at it. And then you look at the hormone production, you look at all the herbicides and pesticides. They've talked about glyphosate in Roundup and herbicides, pesticides that have their own issue otherwise, what it can do to the nutrients in the actual vegetables and fruits. But those also are affecting Mother Nature. You look at cell phones.
You can go on and on and on.
I know,
You can go.
there was one person, 31 years old, a physical fitness expert. He came to me in confidence, I knew him, and he said, Jacobus, I just have a new girlfriend and I cannot get an erection.
It's pretty young.
And I said, my God. I said, where do you keep your cell phone? I said, oh, I got it right here. I said, no, I know where it is. I saw you coming in. I said, why do you keep your cell phone in your front pocket? I said, you're frying your balls. I
No
might
pun
as well
intended.
call it, yeah.
No pun
Yeah.
intended.
And he said, you're kidding me. I said, how often do you really look at that phone? He said, maybe 5-6 times during the day. I said, then put it on a shelf, walk over there, look at it, and then put it down again and go back doing what you're doing. He said, you're kidding me. That really has something to do with it? I said, absolutely. What do you think radiates out of these phones?
EMF.
And he did it, and he came back a week later. Everything was A-okay. 1 week.
Without even taking anything.
No, not taking anything. And then there was really cute. There was a gentleman who came in, 82 years old. And he said, I just want to tell you, I just got a new girlfriend.
Oh boy.
I said, really? Congratulations. He said, yeah. But when we try to get intimate, I cannot get an erection. Same thing. I said, you have a cell phone? Yeah, I got it right here. This man also in his front pocket. I said, put it in the car. And he literally walked to the car and put it in the car, came back in. I said, no, you didn't have to do it literally. I said, but just. And he said, really, that has something to do with it. A week later, he comes in with his girlfriend. She was 79, which was really cute.
Oh my.
Yeah. So I thought he had like a 22-year-old or something. No, she was 79. And a week after that, so we talked a little bit more. He wanted to be more educated and wanted her to understand what was going on with him.
Fantastic.
1 more week later, I saw him again, and he gave me the thumbs up. Everything was working. That's how quick it works. And there are so many men today who have erectile dysfunction because they are estrogening with the EMF waves affecting the sperm in their testicles, and therefore also the hormones. It affects them. And so you look at cell phones, look at computers. Too many people sit in front of computers so much. There is the blue rays coming out of that.
Right.
You know, then you look at herbicides, pesticides. You look at what they've done to the food supply. We look at hormones in women with the pill and the IUDs. And then when women are diagnosed with cancer, they say, well, you have too much estrogen. Yeah, no, you don't have too much, but you have more estrogens than the chaperone's progesterone. So what they say, we got to get rid of the estrogen. Your high estrogen is causing you to have cancer.
Right.
And so they put them on tamoxifen, which is, after the radiation and the chemo and the surgery, they put them on tamoxifen to get rid of the estrogens, but with it, the other hormones. And it is devastating because people don't feel good. In men, when a man has prostate cancer,
Yes.
they say, your testosterone is too high.
Right.
Well, if estrogens in women cause cancers especially in women in menopause. And if prostate cancer happens primarily in men in their 50s and 60s and 70s, how can you blame testosterone when the testosterone and also the estrogen in women are on the decline? If estrogen causes cancer in women, why doesn't cancer happen to every 22-year-old woman in this country?
Right.
And why doesn't testosterone cancer or prostate cancer happen to all 25-year-old men in this country? It happens as we get older. So it is not because of testosterone. Don't blame testosterone. And what they do with men, they put them on Lupron, which is similar to tamoxifen. It reduces, it gets rid of the testosterone,
does.
but with it, everything else.
Right.
And it is, in my opinion, it is a crime.
It's debilitating.
It is.
Absolutely debilitating.
It is.
And I've seen it hands down. I've seen it physically.
Yeah.
How they do that to these patients that are going either through prostate issues.
Yeah. They just ream them and
Yes.
they cut and burn and give them really toxins because we need hormones. If we eliminate hormones, all hell breaks loose.
It does.
It actually kills people sooner.
It does.
When you give them healthy hormones, then they can live a long time with a lot of joy and happiness and be as active as they want to be. It's very sad. It's very sad.
It is. But it's going to full circle. It's the food. It's our lifestyle. It's the stress,
The stress is a big one.
Yeah. And I asked these individuals, does the doctor talk to you about all that? No. I only have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
How
If
can,
that.
What can I talk about in 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Give me something.
Yeah.
That's what they talk about.
That's
Give
right.
me something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, how is that going to solve any of the other issues that you've just had?
Mm-hmm.
And so forth. And stress, everyone knows stress kills. Everyone knows that. If it won't kill you, it's going to kill something inside you. It really, really will, or start manifesting into something because of the stress.
Yeah.
And then it's just still ignored.
You mentioned earlier thyroid. And the thyroid is in the throat. And there are different explanations about thyroid issues. One of them is a more metaphysical one. If you have a low thyroid, it says it is right where the voice box is. And so there is a metaphysical explanation. It says if you have a thyroid problem, it says, are you able to speak your voice? Are you able to say, really stand for yourself and speak up for yourself? And many people, men and women, have been suppressed in expressing their opinion and expressing their feelings. And therefore, many people are a lot more subdued in who they are than what they would really like to express. So that is an interesting one.
Okay.
But when you look at symptoms of low thyroid, such as apathy, anxiety, depression, weight gain, hormonal imbalances, especially menstrual issues, tingling hands and feet, low libido, hair loss, brittle nails, loss of eyebrows, dry eyes, cold hands and feet. You look at that and you look at possible causes. A cause of a disease that we call a disease that is the effect of a cause, right?
Absolutely.
So that cause, one of them is an hormone imbalance. And it mentions very clearly that it is an estrogen-progesterone imbalance and that it is a cortisol DHEA imbalance. And to me, that makes it super interesting, if I may explain that real quick.
Go ahead, yes.
So in the adrenals, we really make three hormones. We make DHEA, so women make it in the ovaries, and you make it in the brain, and there is different parts of the body that make it, but the adrenals are very concise in making DHEA. And they make adrenaline, and they make cortisol. So I look at it this way. If you think about what is the maximum percentage of hormones that adrenals can make. You say, well, that's 100%. You cannot make 110%. It doesn't exist. 100%, that's it, right? Adrenaline is affecting the brain. Cortisol helps the brain to handle stress. DHEA converts further down into, first of all, two male hormones, androstenediol, andro as male, androstenedione. Androstenediol goes into testosterone, and testosterone goes into estradiol. Androstenedione goes into estrone, and then estrone goes into estriol. So DHEA in reality converts into testosterone and into estrogens.
Simple terms.
Right. Now, I look at testosterone and estrogens as hormones that we really need inside the physical body for muscle strength, for different functions, energy in general, right? So if you make 100% of hormones and everything is perfect, then each hormone is 33 1/3%, right?
Okay.
Now, if your adrenaline is 40% and the stress you're under is 45%,
There you go.
what happens to the DHEA? So you can only make 15%
And
to make 100.
Now they're suffering.
And now people become tired.
There you go.
So they start working with uppers. And like you say, maybe caffeine or sugary drinks, anything to make it through their cycle of the day.
Yes.
Because their brain tells them, we have a full agenda. We got to get all this stuff done. And then we still want to enjoy. We want to go out. We want to hang out with our friends. We want to play pickleball. We want to go to the gym at the end of a long day. And so in a way, it causes a lot of stress, both on the physical body, because the brain is just pushing you to get it done with the cortisol. And so what starts happening is your physical body, the DHEA primarily, starts to suffer. And that becomes an issue. So cortisol DHEA ratio is off, and so we need to make sure that we bring that balance back as well.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why I have a thyroid issue. Yeah, so
And it stems from hormones.
stems from hormone because these are hormones.
It all is connected.
Yeah. So for women, I would say make sure that you do a blood test if you want to. You can say, well, I don't need to know because I already know symptoms. So based on the symptoms, I know that my estrogens are higher than my progesterone production. So instead of lowering the estrogen and causing other problems, we just bring the balance up by increasing the progesterone or the chaperones. Then that will be number one. When this is also something that young girls need to understand.
Absolutely right.
But because of the lifestyle of young girls and they get into sex more often, more quickly, younger age, they start putting girls then on the pill because, well, you're going to be sexually active anyway. But they don't understand what an effect this has on young girls and therefore young mothers. Yeah.
And I do notice that, okay, there could be maybe a very small percent that nothing ever happens to them. They could be fine. But I'm noticing that percentage is dwindling.
Yeah.
Now it's affecting a larger number of side effects. And just it's an overall, it's increasing.
Yeah.
Okay. When I was a young person, I tried. I think I lasted 3 months. And I already knew right then and there that's not for me.
You were on the pill. Yeah.
But it only was 3 months.
What were some of the issues that you felt?
Immediate depression.
Really?
Immediate weight gain. I mean, it was just within 3 months. I'm like, well, I was a runner.
Yeah, you were a runner.
I was an active person. So why is this all happening? Very irritable, very just not myself. You know when things are starting to change.
Yeah.
I was already in my 20s, and 3 months, done. Absolutely. Yes. But
That's
then
impressive.
I have a couple friends, never had an issue.
Yeah, interesting.
Never had an issue. So I don't know if what role it plays with it. Do we have to go as deep as the blood type? Do we have to go as deep as lifestyle? But I thought I was doing it all right anyway. It happens. So there's never a set key that it unlocks. It's just everyone is different, of course. But I'm just saying the numbers are increasing now.
Yeah.
When an individual goes on, because the latest thing is an IUD. I've never even heard what an IUD was. It was always birth control.
Yeah.
And now there's
IUDs can be without or with hormones.
True.
So I usually recommend if women really want to do it, see if you can do it without the hormones in the IUD, and then use something like a progesterone cream to bring the balance back.
There you go. I would think that's my last case scenario, big time. I'd rather do it naturally.
Sure.
I've learned over time and time again, and as we all know, life is not perfect. We're not perfect, but we can be balanced. Now is balance perfect? Well, it's an achievement that you have to do,
right?
And it's something that you have to always consistently go towards. Do we have the patience? Well, I think it creates patience because it's going to be something that you will endure the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go through all these different phases as a woman, for sure. And do you prepare yourself? Can you prepare yourself? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Yeah. So.
Have you ever done any reading about how much nutrition can affect hormones or alcohol can affect hormones? Because sometimes you feel with too much alcohol is the chicken or the egg, right? Do women just not feel good,
right,
and go to alcoholism or drinking more than they probably should?
Right.
Right?
I've seen that.
Yeah. Or is it indeed, are they eating foods with artificial ingredients, too many food colorings, too many additives in it that could be hormone disruptors as well?
Right, absolutely. With the nutrition aspect of it, we all know in certain phases of our lives, like right now, if in perimenopause or menopause, there's actually phyto-enriched foods, phytoestrogenic foods, phytoprogesterone supporting foods that is needed. And if they just know what it is, it's as simple as that. And it helps. And we talked about cholesterol, and I think flaxseed is one of the biggest ones.
Very good.
It's
Good
it's a
point. That can really
phytoestrogenic.
help.
It's a
Yes.
phytoestrogenic foods. It's so simple.
Dong quai is another herb.
There are
Dong
many
quai.
herbs.
Yeah,
Many herbs that really mimic how our estrogen is balanced in the body, how the progesterone is balanced in the body. That wonderful herb of chaste tree
berry.
Vitex that it's called. That one is more on the progesterone side, I do believe.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to start balancing both.
Yeah.
I have seen that work with women that
Wonderful stuff.
I've seen women that haven't had their period just work overnight. I've had a girl that couldn't get pregnant work overnight.
Yeah.
Balancing out your progesterones, work overnight.
Wow.
It's
With
amazing
the Vitex,
with just a simple Vitex.
Yeah.
Yes, and I actually call it the feel good supplement.
Yeah.
They start feeling better immediately. Yes, and it's a wonderful experience. It's a wonderful
This is
thing
more
to
for
see.
younger women then. The Vitex, I would say.
It
No?
could go into perimenopause too.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because what's happening in perimenopause? Things are fluctuating. They're not really decreasing, they're just fluctuating. I feel like it's like the time where your hormones just don't know what they want to do.
Yeah.
And get on it. See what happens.
Black cohosh.
Shoot, that's another phytoestrogenic.
Phytoestrogen.
Yep.
That's right. Good one. Red raspberry is very good for women who have heavy bleedings, heavy periods. It helps with that, reducing that. Red raspberries.
Yes.
Not the fruit, but the herb. Yeah.
Would it be, I think, the leaf, the raspberry?
Raspberry leaf, red
Yes.
raspberry leaf. That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting one that you bring up about the Vitex. That's a good one.
It is.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably the most balancing herb I've ever witnessed on an individual.
Yeah.
By just noticing it. And they notice it right away too. It's something as simple as that.
So there was this book called The Hormone Health Zone by Dr. Don Colbert, medical doctor. And I was reading that book. It's super interesting. But I learned from him what happens in menopause.
Okay.
So in menopause, you lose those 5 hormones, the 2 estrogens, the progesterone, the testosterone, and the DHEA. They really start to come down. So what happens is women start experiencing menopausal symptoms, vaginal dryness, low libido, painful intercourse, hot flashes, memory issues, irritability. Those are some big ones. So in a way, you don't have to deal with periods anymore, but now you deal with other things. And what happened is there was a study done that to some medical doctors is controversial, but from 2006 to 1996 to 2004, 8 years, there was a study done, research project. It was called the Women's Health Initiative, WHI. Look it up on the internet. Over 100,000 women who were going through menopause and were dealing with severe hot flashes were given the option to take a estrogen compound, which was called Premarin. Premarin is in the pharmaceutical version of natural estrogens. Like we said earlier, the pharmaceutical cannot take Mother Nature patented. They have to create some kind of a synthetic form out of it, and then they can make a product that they can patent and multiply. So Premarin is made from the urine of pregnant horses. Premarin, pregnant mare's urine. And they said, we feel that if we give women this, we can reduce the hot flashes. So they started giving women this product, and the hot flashes went away. And women said, oh my God, this is fantastic.
Miracle.
But what also happened was that all they gave women was estrogen. So if you do not have your chaperone, and you send those tomboys in the school bus on a field day without anybody watching them, they start creating symptoms. The symptoms were a little bit different than just PMS, because in PMS you don't have hot flashes, really, and you don't really have painful intercourse, but and vaginal dryness, but you have issues that are definitely severe when you go into menopause. So 5 years into the study, 2001, they abruptly stopped it because so many women in this group of over 100,000 were developing breast cancer or had already died of breast cancer, ovarian cancer, cervical cancer, any of the female cancers, and they had heart disease and strokes. So they stopped the study because they realized there was something dangerous going on. So what was some of the issues was that they only gave them estrogens without the other supporting hormones. They didn't bring all 5 of them up, they just put estradiol up there. Then they started coming out with a progestin, so they call it Premarin Pro, progestin, Prem Pro, but that also had issues with it. What Dr. Colbert says in his book is that the hot flashes are not because we lost the estrogens and the progesterone and all that stuff. So the medical profession of pharmaceuticals were giving us more estrogens because he said that's what you lost. What Dr. Colbert is talking about, in the pituitary gland, we make the follicle stimulating hormone, which happens to develop the follicle every month, and the luteinizing hormone, which is more involved with the progesterone production.
Oh, there you go.
So he says, when a woman is ovulating, there is a monthly cycle in which the follicle stimulating hormone sends a signal to the follicle and says, start producing that egg, start producing the egg, start producing the egg. It's this natural flow. And when you do a blood test on follicle stimulating hormone, at that time, you see that the number on the blood test on follicle stimulating hormone is always less than the number 23. So it could be 19 to 22, something like that. And that means the follicle stimulating hormone is doing its job. What they notice is when the ovaries do not fire anymore, the hormones are gone. And I try to say it in a simple way. The follicle stimulating hormone says, make your hormones. Make your hormones. Come on, make hormones. And it starts to get irritated because there is no response. The ovary says, I'm done. I'm done. No, you got to make hormones. And so I kind of use the analogy, the FSH, the follicle stimulating hormone, is getting irritated.
There you go.
And it starts yelling louder and louder to get its wish. And because of that, that level, the low blood pressure around 90 to 23 now goes up. So what happens, what Dr. Colbert talks about, when the FSH goes over 23, especially in menopause, you start having the menopausal symptoms. So why did the hot flashes go away? Because when doctors started giving women Premarin, a form of estrogen, the FSH was yelling, and all of a sudden that estrogen comes up out of nowhere. And it says, okay, there you are. I can relax a little bit. And the FSH would come down, therefore eliminating the symptoms. But at one point it goes like, but where, well, the other ones are probably coming really soon. I just see estrogen right now. The other ones will probably come. There is again a little bit of life over here. And so the symptoms came down because the follicle stimulating hormone came down.
There you go.
And so I have seen women in postmenopausal with horrible hot flashes. One lady had an FSH of 165.
Oh my.
Oh, she was miserable.
That's unheard
Miserable.
of. That's a high.
So what do we need to do? We need to help women with stimulating all the hormones back to a more youthful level. And what he says, Don Colbert, he says also that when the follicle stimulating hormone goes up and the luteinizing hormone goes up in menopause, there is an increased dementia and an increased Alzheimer's and forgetfulness as well. So now we go back to something I said earlier. Testosterone is the number one hormone to help prevent Alzheimer's. The number one for heart disease, protect the heart, and number one for building bone. And so when we start bringing all these hormones back up in menopause into a youthful level, the follicle stimulating hormone will come down and you feel rejuvenated. But how do you do that? Well, sometimes you need to work with a physician and see if there is any way that they can work with, hopefully, bioidentical hormones.
True.
So bio is cell, identical means the cell identifies with the hormones. It opens the door and said, come on in. And those are the hormones that are totally natural that we know. And that is usually what you may have to go to a compounding pharmacy, but it is not the Premarin, it's not the progestin. There is different ways that you can stimulate natural DHEA, natural testosterone for men and women, natural progesterone, natural estrogens.
Absolutely.
So, having said all that, this means that even women going through menopause do not have to suffer if they are working on balancing their hormones. Men who get older can increase their testosterone, look at their levels, do a blood test, find out where your estrogens are, how is your testosterone converting into estrogen, and there is ways naturally to lower estrogen production, lower that enzyme aromatase. Now some of the natural remedies are not working as well for everybody, like DIM or DIM, Calcium D-glucarate is another one that helps to lower estrogens. Those are some. Kruslin, ChrYsin. Kruslin is helping with lowering the estrogens. If that doesn't work, you could go talk to a physician and maybe take something called Arimidex. And Arimidex is usually used for women who have estrogen dominance, right? The progesterone deficiency. They lower the estrogen. Men can use a very small amount of that, like a quarter tablet, like 1 milligram to women and maybe a quarter milligram to men. And it can actually slow down the aromatase enzyme to convert it into estrogens. And that can help men as well. There are different options out there, and one is not better than the other. We have the possibility to try something. It would be fantastic if you can work with a physician who looks at all these options and says, let's work with this. Do it for a few months, let's retest, and then go from there.
But I think you hit the nail on the head where you mentioned...
Always worried about that.
Yes. Well, when you mentioned, does the doctor pull the blood work for estrogens in men? They never tell you that.
They don't.
They don't.
No.
Once again, it's an incomplete test.
Absolutely.
So we're going against one factor here, once again. That needs to be just... we need to open that up. Yeah. So we need to make sure that when the individual gets the blood test done, it has to be a complete hormone test?
So
it's a complete hormone.
For both men and women, for men, I would say total testosterone and free testosterone.
Okay.
Estradiol, DHEA.
You're being very specific.
DHEA, S stands for sulfate, that's the blood test. And then I always recommend men do vitamin D3. So total and free testosterone, estradiol, DHEA, and vitamin D3, because vitamin D3 is very important anyway. And then for women, I would do those and add progesterone to it as well.
Of course.
Yeah. And you can test your thyroid hormones as well. That is a good way. Now, with thyroid hormones, if they're out of balance and you start doing anything to help your thyroid, you do it for 30 days. And after 30 days, you get a retest, because that's how quick it goes. But when it comes to the sex hormones, I always say do it for 3 months, because it takes roughly 2 months, including vitamin D. It takes 2 months to get to the peak. And I want you to go that extra month just to see if you're plateauing, wherever that number is after 3 months. That is important.
There you go.
So those are the tests. And I want to say before we wrap it up, that test that was done from 2006 to 2011 on 2,400 men, ages 69 to 81. They say when you look at total testosterone on a blood test for men, the reference range is somewhere between 240 on the low end and about 1,000 on the high end. Okay. So obviously a 20-year-old man will be roughly around 1,000. An 80-year-old man will be around 240. Well, to me, that range is so pathetically high
it's
that almost every man will be in the normal range.
Sure.
But what they noticed in this study was that men's total testosterone is ideal between 700 and 900. Now, Dr. Colbert recommends 900 to 1,100.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, that's okay, but obviously I would say that is important. But what it also says is that when a man's total testosterone is less than 550, so 549, 548, doesn't matter where, that's still quite a bit for many men. It's hard for them to achieve that. But if it is less than 550, that 5-year study showed there was an immediate 30% increased risk for cardiovascular disease and heart attacks, and a 24% increased risk for strokes. So when I look at men in their 50s and 60s who die of a heart attack, I often wonder if their testosterone, or they've had a stroke, if their testosterone was less than 550, thereby them falling into that 24 to 30% or range. When it comes to estradiol, they say for men, it should be, if the total testosterone is between 700 and 900, they say your estradiol should be between 22 and 30. So if you're at 700, you should be at 22. If you're at 30, you should be at 900. That's kind of how I see it.
Okay.
But it says, so you look at your own total testosterone and estradiol, and you start noticing, let's say if you're 800, you should be at 26, as middle between 22 and 30. If you're at 400, it's half of 800, half of 26. If you're at 400, maybe your estradiol should be at 14. So you kind of need to look at the numbers, use a calculator, learn a little bit about it.
Yes.
But what they say, if total estradiol, the estradiol goes over the number 37, again, 5-year studies, not my study, I just read it. If it is over 37, there is an immediate 133% increased risk for prostate cancer and heart disease. So this is super important, that too many men, if you don't know about the existence of estradiol and you don't ask your doctor about testing estradiol, the sad thing that we've noticed is that doctors nor urologists or oncologists are explaining to men that it could very well be their estradiol being elevated, which causes them to have the problems. We're not, as men, we're definitely not being educated about all the hormones we make. And women, most women don't even know about progesterone. They just know they make estrogens. And that is not adequate. So I highly recommend that men get the hormones done, and when they test for total testosterone, test your estradiol and think about that ratio. And if you want to read the study, go to the website from the company Life Extension Foundation. Life Extension Foundation. And then when you get to the website, you go to their magazine in the upper. And you find the magazine, and when you get into the magazine category, you put in the search the testosterone controversy. That's the article where they talk about the study. And I highly recommend you read that study. Like I said, it was finished in 2011. Life Extension published in that magazine, I think it was June of 2012, where they published the article. And so that is what I read. I've been writing it out. I've been talking to men about it, educating men over the years to check their blood, look at the ratio. Do I have enough testosterone? Is my estradiol up? When men have prostate cancer, I say, please check your estradiol. And too many times they go to the doctor, and the doctor said, so many men have been on a testosterone replacement.
Oh, okay.
They've been on testosterone replacement therapy because they don't have the libido, the muscle tone is gone, they don't have the same energy. So they go to the doctor, they ask for testosterone.
Okay.
So now they come back and they feel dynamite. A year later, they have the follow-up, and the doctor says, how you doing? Oh, doc, look at me. I feel, my wife, can't keep her hands off me. It's great. I feel dynamite. Okay, see you next year. Year 2, they come back. How you doing? Feel fantastic. Really? Everything still okay? Oh, yeah, feel wonderful. See you next year. Year 3. How you doing? I'm really doing good, but I'm getting out a couple, 3 times a night. I get up and got to use the bathroom.
Oh.
It's a little different, disturbs my sleep. I don't get enough sleep. I feel a little bit more tired during the day, but otherwise I feel really good. Let's keep an eye on that one. Year 4. How is that going? You were saying you were getting up at night. Yeah, but now I'm standing there and I don't feel like I'm emptying my bladder.
Oh, no.
That's not good. Yeah, it really bothers me. I'm looking for a bathroom and I can't figure out why I cannot empty my bladder. That's a concern. I got a colleague on the 3rd floor. Let me send you to him. It's a urologist. And he says, let me do some testing. So now they checked your PSA, the prostate-specific antigen. Oh, it's slightly elevated. Well, let's do a little biopsy. And they start probing into the prostate and they notice cancer.
Oh.
Now what? What am I going to do, doc? Well, we've been giving you testosterone and now you have prostate cancer. So 1 and 1 is 2. Testosterone causes prostate cancer. And you go like, you're kidding me. Yeah, we got to get rid of the testosterone. So they put men on Lupron. Get rid of all the testosterone, but with it, all the other hormones. But if testosterone, like I said earlier, causes prostate cancer, every 22-year-old man in this country should have prostate cancer, not that man who is 72. It makes no sense.
Right.
So we do the same with women. They have the estrogens and we blame it on the estrogens. And that is the hormone for life. We blame it on man's testosterone. It's the hormone of life. We need testosterone like you need estrogen, but the other hormones need to be in balance. Now, this man was never tested for his estradiol. So you grow the testosterone, yeah, the aromatase enzyme starts expanding the estradiol. And the rule of thumb is when the estradiol gets over the number 37, keep that in mind, you have 133% increased risk for prostate cancer and cardiovascular problems. Again, it's not my study, but look it up, the testosterone controversy. It's a great article, great read. You'll learn a lot. We need to know about this stuff.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It is amazing. So, anything else to add?
I think we covered it all.
We covered a lot.
I think we covered a lot.
But we can go in more details, but we'll do it another time.
Sure.
You know, this is really important.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Mitzi.
Oh, thank you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you all. Thank you all for listening. I hope you learned something. I hope at least it makes you think. That you say, you know what? I better do my blood test. Do it at the right time. For men, it doesn't really matter. We don't have to worry about it. Just go anytime. Get your hormones tested. And so in men, it's total and free testosterone. I would say your DHEA, and would do your estradiol. And then I would always add vitamin D3 because it is such an amazing, amazing vitamin that is so important for our overall health. And for women, I would say if you can, if your physician is willing to work with you, do estradiol plus estrone. And Dr. Colbert says the estradiol should be more than 2 times the amount of estrone. Little more than 2 times the estrone. I would also check the progesterone in women and make sure that you, if you can, get this book, Don Colbert, The Hormone Health Zone, because in the back of the book, he actually gives you numbers where your hormones need to be. And I think once you understand these hormone numbers, let me see if I can find the page, then you can actually do the blood test. Progesterone, ideal for women, is between 10 and 20. Testosterone for women should be between 60 and 70, according to Dr. Colbert. DHEA, there's a whole other book, but I recommend that women keep their DHEA between 280 and 380, but not less than 150 on the blood test. So DHEA-S is the blood test. And then I think if you can get those hormones tested and start looking and researching your numbers, you're gonna feel much more empowered and realize that you can make a lot of changes in the way you feel and the way your body is functioning, young and old. So all the best to you. I hope you do some more research on it. Maybe challenge your physician a little bit and say, hey, there's more to know. There's more to know for me. They probably know, but they're not sharing always. Maybe there's not enough time, whatever the case. But knowing your hormone levels is super important. So do your research. I wish you all the best. And I hope you tune in for another episode of Health in Focus with Jacobus. Have a good day. Right, Mitzi?
Visit healthinfocusnow.com.